whenever we hear the word networking, we know that it's important, but we don't necessarily know A to B, how to actually get there step by step. So my aim, folks, to make is for today to make this incredibly practical, so that literally from the second you leave this and you jump onto LinkedIn, for example, you can actually start making action and making progress. So without further ado, we'll keep my intro a little bit short. But yeah, basically, I quite scarily 10 years ago now graduated. So I know we've got a lot of finalists in the room. Well, that was me 10 years ago, trying to figure out my own career. And actually, a fun fact that I don't get the chance to talk about is literally 10 years ago, I was navigating networking and I actually landed a graduate role before graduating just by pitching myself. So this is sort of a little bit of inspo for anybody who thinks, you know what, I've kind of got a company, an organization, or just somewhere I would love to be, and I just want to shoot my shot. I did this with Veganuary, which at the time was a charity I was absolutely obsessed by. And I had done some fundraising for them in my final year. And I basically realized that there was a huge gap in the market where they could be getting university students, so people like yourselves, to take on the Veganuary challenge and fundraise. So I essentially pitched that idea to them via email. And before you know it, I was being invited to Carnaby Street in London. I was going to their PR event. I met their celebrity influencers. I mean, at the time, we were just called ambassadors, right? Influence was a little bit early then. And then I actually pitched myself to the CEO and a co-founder at the end. And had they been able to give me a better paying role, if I'm completely honest, I would have accepted it. But unfortunately, I had to go in a different direction. But transparently, I wouldn't be in front of you right now if I hadn't taken the other option. So everything has its place, but just know that, you know, these things stand the test of time. Yes, there's trends in terms of LinkedIn or like best practice, but this is pretty universal stuff because this is tapping into the human psychology of how we network, how we build rapport, how we build a reputation for ourselves. So without further ado, I'm going to touch on three key areas. So three things that you could achieve as a desirable outcome with your networking skills. The first is referrals, the second is hidden jobs, and the third is personal branding. And then whatever time we have left over, I am going to try and protect as much time as possible so that you can get some sort of bespoke support. We'll leave it for Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to get straight into our first chapter, which is referrals. Now, to get everybody on the same page, what actually is a referral? So this is where there is a current vacancy for a role in a company, but you can know someone who is in the similar role or just works at that company and can basically become your internal advocate for why you would be a suitable candidate. So in 2026, transparently, this is becoming more and more important because the market is becoming more competitive. So having someone who can vouch for you as someone who sort of warmly knows you can really make a difference and help you cut through the noise. But here are some things that typically go wrong when the average student or grad, or honestly just human being on LinkedIn, can sort of fall down, which stops you having an effective referral strategy. The first thing I want to say is that sometimes we can be a little bit too quick to ask for what we're looking for, and it ends up being a transactional interaction. We don't want it to be where we're like, hi, can you help me get a job? We want to nurture that relationship and give it the intention and love it deserves. This also means that we can't rush this. I wouldn't recommend that you go straight in with the kill and say, hey, can you refer me? We want to have a longer game sort of mentality to this. So what the goal is, we want to build the relationship first, and then the side mission is getting the referral. And I'm going to walk you through now, step by step, how you can secure the side mission, but also the goal of building a true, authentic relationship. And it really comes down to these 3 points that I'm going to walk you through now. My screen is somehow not sharing. Let me just share it one more time. Bear with me a second. I don't know why
it was sharing, and then it just just at the last second.
Is this all good? We can see this again then? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. So step one, we need to identify, well, who could be some great people on the inside that could become my referral? So what I would recommend you do is all of this, by the way, is going to be mapped to LinkedIn, because transparently, I don't think you really need anything more than this platform, especially when you're getting going as a finalist or grad. So step number one, you're going to look up let's say 10 to 20 companies that you would be really, really excited to work for. I'm going to use Amazon as an example today, but it could be anyone. It could be Graduate Recruitment Bureau. It could be whoever. Sky's the limit. So think about who you want to sort of, get intel from. I would always recommend, by the way, that you hit the follow button so that you have all of their alerts. But the next step you're going to take is on that company page, there will be a people tab. Now, this is where you're going to need to do some internet stalking a little bit and figure out, okay, what is the exact title of the role that I would love to land and get a referral for? It might be, from a job spec that you're seeing it, or it might be sort of from some other digging. So let's just assume for a second that you are an aspiring marketer and you would love to be what we call at Amazon a brand specialist. So we're going to plug that in and see how many people are currently doing that role and currently have that title. Now, I did a little bit work earlier to show you some examples. I found many people who had that brand specialist title, but I'm just going to show you 3, for example. The aim of the game is you want to add as many of these people as you can to your network. The reason being is there is an inherent challenge on LinkedIn where not everybody's as active on the platform as you would think they are. People can have you sit in their inbox for months on end, or maybe they actually are just a bit of a LinkedIn lurker and they're not really that hot on their notifications. So the more people you can add, the better chance you get actually, getting through to somebody. And I would recommend on average 1 in 3 people are going to actually accept your connection request. Not necessarily have a conversation with, but are just going to accept your request. So scale it and you'll get more return. Now, what is really important is we need to ace the outreach. And for me, ACE stands for these 3 things. Number 1, you need to analyze their profile for some core information. You're secondly then going to craft the message and actually reach out to them. And then over time, you want to actually evaluate how successful or not is this so far as an outreach strategy. So we're going to hit connect to as many of these people, and as many people who then return the favor and accept your connection. This is what you can do. So just to show you an example, let's say Aisha was an ideal person for me to reach out to. There's quite a few indicators to me as to why she would be a good bet. Number 1, you can see in her activity that she's been really active on the platform just 4 days ago. In fact, she actually congratulated one of her colleagues, which, by the way, is a good indicator that you're quite hot on LinkedIn. People generally don't comment a lot. They might passively engage, and that's about it. So if anyone is either posting content or commenting on other people's content, take that as a very good sign that they take LinkedIn quite seriously. Now, another thing that will happen is when you connect with people, LinkedIn automatically does this for you. It summarizes any highlights that you have in common. Now, for me and Aisha, amazing plot twist, we happen to have a lot of stuff in common. We both went to the same university and we actually were involved in the same fundraising society when we were students. So this is an ideal person. Again, for you, you might have a different point of interest, but if you have something in common, we must leverage it. Now, what I'm going to do in a second is show you an example outreach message. But the thing I want to make really, really clear, there's nothing perfect about the way that I'm doing this. This is probably the biggest FAQ I get from students and grads. Farrah, what is the perfect combination of words that I should be saying that is the right thing to say? There is no right thing. Today, I'm going to be teaching you about the philosophy that underpins good outreach, because that way you can be empowered and do it sort of on your own steam. So I'm going to share the message. I'll read it out loud, but in the chat, I would really, really love to hear any of your feedback in terms of why do you think this is an effective message? And is there anything that's surprising you in terms of how I'm going about it? So honestly, don't worry about being right or wrong, just like anything as a knee-jerk reaction that sort of strikes you, please share in the chat because I would love to hear it. But it goes as follows. Hey Aisha, exclamation mark. Thanks so much for accepting my request. How are you? Smiley face. Amazing to see that we're both Warwick grads and you were a RAG member. I was Pres back in 2015/16. You must have been Alicia's year, right? Question mark. Checking in as your brand specialist role at Amazon, or I'm going to have to reshare it one more time, bear with me a second. Checking in as your brand specialist role at Amazon sounds great. How have you found your first 18 months there? I'd love to land a role just like this, so wondered if you'd be happy to share your journey over a short coffee call or via DMs. In brackets, whatever is easiest for you. Looking forward to hearing more, Farrah, smiley face. So, anything that is striking you as interesting, or maybe something that you wouldn't think to do, or you just think is an effective way to get her attention, I would really love to hear in the chat. And then we can dissect this a little bit more and have some good takeaways. So let me just see what we have in the chat so far. But yeah, anything and everything, I would really, really love to hear. So, oh, I'm actually just trying to see where I can access the chat. It is saying, Karima, have we got anything in the chat so far? Maybe you can.
There are some people typing. I can
Great,
read it
great.
off when it comes through.
Amazing.
There should be a top panel at the top. It says chat. I don't know if you
Yeah,
can see that.
That is what I'm on, but I don't know why there isn't anything. But that's okay.
That's fine. Let's just see. I've got Esteban typing, so we're just gonna see what they say. Esteban says, I think it depends on the role or person, but should it be a bit more formal?
Aha, great question. So I'm going to go quite bold here and say, in general, no. This is the appropriate level of tone and formality. This is something that the average student or grad gets very, very wrong about networking. Even if you're networking with someone who is significantly more senior than you, sure, you might cut the emoji, let's say. But in terms of me asking questions, in terms of me being this sort of warm professional, this is the tone that you want to strike. I promise you, if you are too cold and too informal and wooden, number one, it's just not going to be memorable enough. You're just going to get aired a lot of the time. And secondly, we're looking for an emotional reaction. Logically, we can talk all day about, we should be obliged to reply to people in our inbox, but we know that's not the reality. You need emotional reasoning why somebody would want to reach back out to you. So we have to appeal to that nature, that human nature where, yeah, emotion is significantly stronger than logic. So yeah, don't fear being a warm professional, even if you are early on in your career. But yeah, that's a really, really great point. So thank you for raising that. Do we have anything else in the chat as observations?
Yes, we have Chisholm saying, don't you think it's a lengthy message?
So great question. I don't think it is. No, you need a balance. So what I would say is when you're reaching out to people, unless you have the premium account where it is somewhat unlimited, we only get 5 connection requests we can make a month where you have the little note attached to it. And that is very limited. That's about 200 characters. Now, I don't advise that you actually rely on that. And realistically, you're going to need more than 5 every single month anyway. You're probably looking at like, I don't know, 100, 200 if you're taking it seriously. So what you need to do, in my best experience, is you just hit connect, you see if they reply or accept your request, and then you can send a sort of middle of the road word count. This is not offensive. This is, I think, under 100 words, but it's packed with reasons to make people want to reply. So there's no point in arbitrarily putting something that's too short, but just completely forgettable. We need to strike that balance between content, but the quality of the content as well.
Brilliant.
Any other observations?
We've got a couple of typing, so we're just gonna wait for that.
Sure.
But yeah, I do find it's interesting that you might think that it's too informal, but I think that is the reason that you're reaching out. You're trying to get that emotional kind of connection there, something to kind of hook them in. So it's an interesting insight.
And oh yeah, go for it. Yeah, sorry, Karima. Yeah, what else do we have?
We've got Stephen. If the message is too long, is it possible they would think it was generated by AI?
So do you think, Stephen, this looks AI generated? Don't feel you have to like explicitly answer, but just ask yourself that question. I'd like to think it would be very, very obvious that this simply could not be AI. There is too much context about me, about you, and about the nature of our connection that means that it could not have been AI generated. But you're right, we are living in a world where there is AI slop. And it will happen everywhere. You will be surprised at the amount of people I have entering my inbox, and it is just within milliseconds obvious that they're using the same tired template. So even more reason why we have to go a little bit more bespoke, a little bit more specific to them, so that your outreach can actually be targeted. So yeah, I don't think the length of the message indicates AI. It's the nature of what you're saying is the biggest indicator. I want to highlight a couple of things my side. So these are a few psychological hacks that I would thoroughly recommend you take on board. The first one being the use of repetitive questions. So I promise you, in human nature, we like to close loops. So when you ask somebody, how are you? That is infinitely more sort of like hard to ignore than saying, hope you're well. Interestingly, you notice I say, you must have been Alicia's year, right? Question mark, almost like a bit of a rhetorical question. I'm not stating it as a fact. I'm asking for confirmation. And these things, if you ask sort of 3 to 4 questions, they build up. And it might not be every single question that they're curious to answer, but there'll be one of them. One of them will strike. Maybe it's for them, the fact that they're like, yeah, you know what? I am proud of myself for the fact that I've been at Amazon for 18 months. It has been a hell of a ride. Thank you so much for asking. That might be sort of internally what they're saying to themselves. So the beauty of asking questions means that you're actually inviting somebody to reply. But if you just give, pros and statements, it will be harder. You'll also notice that I am trying to make their life as easy as possible in terms of what the bar is for replying. I'm saying here, I wondered if you'd be happy to share anything, either via coffee call or DMs, whatever's easiest for you. And this is really important to strike because the cold hard reality of networking when you're reaching out to someone and you kind of want something from them is that you've got to set the bar low enough where they can actually meet you. If you make it too lofty and it's like, I want this, or, let's have an hour coffee call, or can I meet you in person? It just makes it harder for them to say yes. Make their life easy, make it an easy yes for them. So flexibility, positivity, and tailoring it to the person so that it shows that you care. Those 3 things will get you very, very far with 90% of outreach messages. So yeah, if there's anything else that you're noticing, please continue to share in the chat, or questions or things that you even want to challenge. I love that there's been some challenge today, because that's how we get to the heart of why these things work. But let's imagine that a very common next step is you send a lovely message and you actually don't hear back. What do you do? Is it rude to follow up, or should we just accept defeat? Is there sort of a grey area in the middle? Like, what should we actually do? So here's an idea of what you could do in, say, a week's time. Hi Aisha, how are you? Hope you're having a great week. You must be super busy, but when you do get a chance, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks in advance for this, really appreciated. Farrah. So again, we're being cordial. We're still asking a little question there. How are you? And we're making it clear that we still very much want to hear from them, but it's absolutely fine if they don't have the time or bandwidth to do so. But the beauty of following up is that you don't know why they never replied to you. They could have seen your message, loved it, and then just lost connection on the tube and then, forgot about it within 5 minutes. They could have been meaning to reply to you all week, but just a few things have cropped up, or a whole host of things, in the background. Don't assume that just because somebody has not replied to you that they don't want to hear from you. And the only way you find out is by just taking that little bit of a risk and just following up. So there's nothing wrong with that, so long as you strike the balance between being sort of friendly, diplomatic, but also making clear that, you still really want to get to know them. A question might be, what if you like literally never ever hear back, but you really just have this gut feeling that like this person could be really, really useful to you? There is one last step that you can take, and I would say it's for later down the road. It's sort of a longer play of a follow-up. But imagine in sort of 3 to 6 months' time, you realize, you know what, I never heard back from Aisha, and I just have this feeling that should be great for me to have my network. You could think about looking at something on her profile, seeing if something good's happened in her life. Maybe she's been promoted. Maybe she's sharing about an exciting project that she's doing at Amazon. Maybe something else has happened and you can offer that as kudos. So it might sound something like this. Hey, Aisha, just saw your exciting news about your promotion. Huge congrats. You must be chuffed. No worries if not, but thought I'd try you once more, just in case now, in fact, was a better time for us to connect. What do you think? Question mark. Either way, wishing you every success in your new role, Farrah. So again, the focus is on them and what we're willing to give them in terms of praise, in terms of kudos, in terms of recognition, not what we just want to immediately take from the interaction. So these are some ways that you could keep sort of, following up and just trying your best to exhaust the lead. But of course, probably by this point, if you don't hear anything, then I would say you move on to other things. But there are some options here that you can play around with. Um, do we have any other reflections in the chat at the moment? I'm just curious if any of these latter conversations has sparked anything else.
Nothing since the last one, so we can
Okay,
keep going.
no worries at all. So in which case then we'll move on to the next section. Sorry, I don't know why my slides keep going, but no worries. Now, what I want to walk through is let's imagine this goes really, really right. Aisha actually does get back and she's thrilled to have heard from you. We're going to then hope to get onto a coffee call of some description. So sometimes it's called a coffee call, sometimes a connection call, but just that moment to actually deepen the connection where you can discuss things like referrals. Now, one thing I would stress is if you're the one reaching out to somebody else, the emphasis should really be on you to sort of lead that interaction. It might transpire that she's very, generous and it's very collaborative, but I want you to imagine that you're going to hop on a call and they'll be like, great, like what do you want to know? Like, what do you want to hear from me? So here are sort of some structures that you can follow so that you get the most out of that interaction. So the first thing I would say is you have to be the one to take charge at the beginning. Things like, thank you so much, Aisha. I'm really excited to speak to you today. I just want to be respectful of your time. How long do we have today? So that way we kind of know, or you know what, actually I have got to jump into a meeting in 20 minutes. So like that would be great. Or no, I've got all the time in the world, like fire away. And actually just outlining what you want to get out of the interaction. There's nothing wrong with being forward so that they know what they can give you that's going to be helpful. So just sort of like, I'd love to learn today about your brand specialist role, how you managed to, successfully land it after uni, and just what I could maybe take on board as someone who wants to land a very similar role. How does that sound? Completely inoffensive. She knows where we're going in the conversation and we can go from there. Then the next step, I call it information gathering. So what you're going to ideally need to bring is some idea of questions that you would like to ask Aisha to start, getting what you need. Now, my advice is you start quite wide with your questions and you see how the conversation goes and you can start to then narrow it down. That way, you've got an idea of what would be good to talk about, but you're being quite present and reactive in the moment because you have no idea where that conversation could go. But it might be something like, what's your role really like? Like maybe could you tell me sort of a day in your life or a week in your life? You might then start to narrow it down and say things like, what was the process for you for landing the role? Like, I know you were hired 18 months ago. What did it look like? And why do you think you were actually so successful? Gives them lots of, opportunity to say lots of information that could be helpful for you. But really see how the conversation goes. And again, what information would make the difference to you? And then in terms of locking in the referral, my best advice here is that you wait until the end of the interaction, maybe sort of the final 10 minutes, and you say, thank you so much. Like, this has been really, really informative. And transparently, I'd really love to pursue landing this exact role. It really sounds like it would be perfect for me. What do you think would be the best way for me to achieve this summer, this winter, in the next couple of months? And I like this because rather than just pigeonholing it as, do you have a referral process? Can you refer me? There actually could be a million and one different ways how they could help you get this role. It's not always a referral process. That could be part of it, but there could be other things that they could help you with. So keep it open and see what they say. You might then want to follow up and say, does Amazon have a referral process? And if so, what does that look like on your side? And how would you actually feel about referring me now that you've got the chance to get to know me better? I think this question is really important because remember, you are at this point a practical stranger to them. And again, we kind of need emotional reasons to want to be somebody's referee. So actually just getting that buy-in and consent from them of like, how do you feel now that you've met me today? Like, do you think I could be a great fit for this role? How would you feel about, referring me in the near future? And that's lovely because then you get confirmation of, yeah, actually, no, you've really impressed me today. Like, I actually think you'd be amazing at this role. So it gives you even more confirmation that, this has been worth your time. So there we are, folks. That's just sort of one way that you could go about this conversation. Obviously, there's lots of different ways, but I just wanted to offer some sort of structure. Don't forget that whenever you have a coffee call with somebody, do not forget the art of following up for the recognition, for the gratitude, for the next steps. So it could be something like, hey, Aisha, so great to properly meet you and hear your story yesterday. Thank you again for this. Just like we discussed, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm going to send you my CV, or this is the latest version like you asked for, or here's my portfolio with like my latest marketing projects. Looking forward to hearing from you, next week or what have you. But just be that person who, if they've asked for something, be very proactive, be on it, be grateful, so that they feel like their time has been valued. So, final things with locking in referrals, keep them posted. When you build an emotional connection with someone, they actually are going to want to hear, hey, Aisha, oh my God, great news. Like, I got invited to an interview. Like, this is so exciting. I'm going to be meeting so-and-so. Do you happen to know them? Or like, are they a colleague of yours? Keep them in the loop, because once they've had that little success through you, you'll be amazed. A lot of people then want to go full underdog spirit and help you more. They might then offer to do a mock experience with you. They might offer to put in a good word with the interviewer. There could be so many possibilities, but if you don't keep them posted, they won't know that you're advancing. The second thing I would say is double check with them, what is the best way to keep in touch with them? It might have originally been LinkedIn, but you know what? Maybe they actually just don't like LinkedIn as a platform. WhatsApp works way better for them, or email is actually best. But again, it's that flexibility piece of like, you tell me, like, I would love to keep up this connection. And what is the best way that you would prefer? And lastly, like I've said all along, always be grateful. At the end of the day, they are doing you a solid because they don't know you yet fully. They're getting to know you. And all you have to offer in the beginning is sort of recognition of their journey and you just being a good person, you being a good human. So having that gratitude of like, yeah, I really appreciate you giving me that time. Like you didn't have to do that. And that was really, really helpful. Will go a long way. So there we are, folks. Before we move on to the next one of hidden jobs, I would really love to know, is there anything that's particularly striking you or resonating with you? Anything that you think, no, I've never thought to try it in that way, or I didn't realize that this was so important? Do share in the chat and yeah, we will start to get ready for the next chapter. Karima, if anyone does share anything in the chat, just feel free to interrupt me and we can just hear what's in the chat.
Perfect, will do.
Thank you. But yeah, for now, let's move on to the second chapter, which is similar to referrals, but a little bit different. There's a few tweaks here, which is hidden jobs. So this is the idea that there are thousands of companies in the UK and obviously millions worldwide where you don't realize they are searching for talent, but they don't have the convenience of a job spec up on LinkedIn or, like recruiters actively searching for them. It lives in the back door of a line manager's head or a head of department's head where they're like, oh, you know what? I would really love to have another staff member, or we've got this problem right now. I need someone, but they never quite get around to the hiring process. This is so unbelievably common, especially in startups, especially in small, medium-sized businesses where their recruitment pipeline is not so established. So it's the idea that roles can be created for you if you put yourself in front of people whose problems you can help to solve. But the key is, how can you figure out who has a hidden job in the back of their head, and how can you pitch yourself so that a role actually gets created for you? So this is what we're going to cover in this section. Now, a few things that the average student grad general networker gets wrong here. You're tapping into the wrong markets to find hidden jobs. I'm going to explain in a second for graduates the 5 major job markets that you should be aware of, which ones are more likely to have hidden jobs and which ones just aren't. So stay tuned for that. The second one is you have what I call a weak value proposition, because you have to remember the goal here is to find very niche, very particular companies who at a graduate level, you genuinely can be helpful to. You can solve problems for in some way. But that's not going to look like every single company. You know, as we grow in our career, we become more and more helpful and useful. But in the beginning, kind of like me with Veganuary, I saw a gap in the market and I was like, you know what? I am just like a lowly student, but it's because I'm a student that makes me valuable to them. I can fix this. They're not seeing that this is a gold mine for them. And you will have other things, no doubt. So it's all about figuring out where and how can I be useful and then putting your proposition in front of people. And it's actually the same process. We're going to identify the right markets, we're going to ace the outreach, and then the ideal outcome is getting on some sort of call to, again, pitch yourself. So, step one, what are the ideal markets for hidden roles? Well, it's not going to be so much big businesses, transparently. I know we spoke about Amazon earlier for referrals, but not so much for hidden jobs. The reason being is at a graduate level, big businesses and grad schemes have very well established pipelines for talent. So, everybody knows the grad schemes, everybody knows the internships or placement year routes. There's not going to be a lot uncovered because they're so good at promoting themselves. And it is similar, I would say, at a graduate level for public and third sector jobs. So things like charities, civil service, NHS, like those kind of big national organisations. Because again, they're just very good at promoting the entry level jobs they have. There are quite a lot of entry level jobs, so there might not be as many hidden roles. But SMEs, small, medium-sized businesses, startups, and of course the world of freelancing, where you're sort of putting yourself up there as a contractor for a company. These are your three to tap into. Some pretty amazing stats about SMEs, by the way, that I'm just going to drop in. So 99% of businesses in the UK are SMEs. You wouldn't think it because everybody knows sort of the top 100 employers and big businesses and grad schemes, but they cover 99% of businesses. And they also cover 50% of all available job opportunities. And they're the ones that get promoted, not the ones that live in people's heads. So when I tell you that there are roles to be discovered and landed, I'm not joking. It's a challenge to sort of uncover them and get them, but it is possible. So these are the markets to be thinking about. Now, obviously, the next step is to be quite specific about, okay, I'm looking at these kind of markets. What are the companies or organizations I could be most valuable to? You know, is it the veganuaries of the world where I just have this niche understanding of how to help them get more fundraisers? It might be in marketing, it might be in sport, it could be in any sort of sector or industry. But think about where you could be helpful and build a list of anything, I would say, from sort of like 3 to 5 companies, but you could go bigger. I've said here, you know, 10 to 20, but probably to be honest, it would be more on the lower side for a finalist. Let me give you an example. This is actually based on an ex-client of mine who was a Figma customer and was so passionate to want to work for them as a startup, he pitched himself and he had an offer. So how you could do this. Let's find them on LinkedIn. Let's find their company page, obviously hit follow, all that kind of good jazz. But then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to the people section and find people who would be the best people in that company to start pitching myself to. So let's imagine, similar to this person I worked with as a finalist, they wanted to break into sales and they love the Figma product. So what better way to be an advocate to, you know, sell it to customers because he loved the product so much. Now we can play around on LinkedIn with all these different filters, but you know, a couple of things that would be good are, you know, obviously location, maybe if you've got some connections, you know, a second degree connection would be somebody in your network is connected to that person. So they could maybe do a warm introduction for you. So different things that you can play around with. And for the sake of this example, I'm going to show you 2 people who we found. So Kate, as you can see here, she is hiring. It says literally in her bio, sure, hiring for exec and leadership, but she's still in the hiring space. So a plucky grad or student that could impress her, you never know what could happen. Secondly, we then have Timothy, who is a sales leader at Figma. So he might not be a hiring manager, but he might be your future line manager. And again, if somebody wants someone on their team and it's sitting in the back of their mind, amazing things could happen for you. He even has, it's quite small, but just so I'm pointing it out, the hiring banner. So he is looking for talent. It's just whether he's looking for somebody like you. Now, here's how you could start acing the outreach. Firstly, for Kate, it's going to be words to this sort of tune. But again, it's not about the exact words, it's about the philosophy behind it. So I'm going to say, hey, Kate, thanks for accepting my request. How's your week going so far? Reaching out directly, as I've done a lot of research into Figma and your UK side staffing setup, in brackets, and I've also been an avid user of the platform for over a year. I believe you currently don't hire grads for sales roles, question mark. Very keen to pitch myself anyway, as I know your product extremely well and trust that I could be valuable to you. Can I send you my best CV and 2 to 3 short reasons why I'd make a great SDR or BDR? That stands, by the way, for Sales Development Representative or Business Development Representative. Very common in the startup world. So you're kind of showing off your homework a little bit there, that you even know the role that you could be hypothetically hired for. Very much looking forward to hearing from you, Farrah. So, anything you're noticing that's slightly different this time in terms of my outreach would be really, really good to hear. So please feel free to put in the chat. Obviously, somebody made a great point earlier about, is it too informal? Maybe you're noticing a slight shift in my tone here. I'm only using one emoji rather than multiple. I'm maybe coming a little bit more logical than I am emotional, but I still have the emotional side of being an avid, fan of the product and that sort of thing. But yeah, is there any observations in the chat, Karima, that we can touch on?
Not as of yet, but
Okay,
I'm sure there will be.
that's okay, no problem at all. Still following the best practice of we've got questions, we've got enthusiasm, we've got a sort of rough cadence of about 100 words, but you can see that every single thing that I'm putting in here is sort of mini paragraphs. It's there with intent. I'm trying to either show off that I'm interested in the organization, that I know a little something already about the role. I'm trying to show off a little bit of my research, and I'm trying to move the conversation along. Is it my CV? Is it 2 to 3 reasons why? So that she can actually, figure out if I'm a good fit for her. And just one other thing, we spoke earlier in the ACE Your Outreach, the analyze part. Now, interestingly, I spotted that I had a mutual connection between Kate and myself. It's a guy called Owen, who I went to university with almost 10 years ago now. Don't know him actually that well anymore, but he is a warm introduction. So if I was in your shoes, this is how I would go about leveraging this. So it would be something like, I'll come back to that in a second. Hey, Owen, long time no speak. Sorry, let me just have to reshare this one more time. Hey, Owen, long time no speak. How are you? Hope you're doing well and you're not too overwhelmed with the heat wave. At the time, the UK had a heat wave, so I thought I'd break the ice with this. It's a little bit much for me. Random question. Do you know KM well? Hiring manager at Figma. Just saw your mutual connections and I'm actually trying to land a role at Figma as we speak. Fingers crossed anyway. Let me know. Super curious, Farrah. So obviously the tone is even looser here because I went to uni with him. I'm tapping into the memory of me being a 21-year-old running around campus and he was the same as well. I'm aiming for a bit of nostalgia here. And I'm also aiming for a little bit of underdog mentality as well. Me saying, I'm trying to land this as we speak, fingers crossed. Hopefully that taps into his emotions of, oh, you know what? I remember Farrah, I like Farrah. I kind of do want to help her. And the beautiful thing about mutual connections is you have no idea how they know one another. Kate could be his partner, could be his flatmate, could be his best friend from the last 2 years, and they're literally in the pub right now as we speak. You don't know how well connected they are. So if you have a mutual connection, my strongest advice is you shoot your shot and you see what comes out of it. Worst case scenario, you get aired. Best case scenario, they can orchestrate the whole thing for you. So sky's the limit, which is quite interesting. Just one more thing, actually, I wanted to touch on before I move on. Another little hack, if you need to sort of tap into a professional within the company, there's a number of platforms you can use to do this where you can generate their email address as well as their LinkedIn profile. There is an add-on to Chrome called Folk where you can do this. It's paid, but there are a lot of free functions where you can generate, I think it's like 10 email addresses a month. And this could be a very good way to sort of double message, but make sure that just in case she doesn't use LinkedIn very much, you're tapping into another way to get her eyeballs on you. Some best practice here, when you're doing the subject, make it interesting. We need it to be intriguing enough where they want to click and see more. So I want to work at Figma, or, can I work here? Question mark. I don't know, something, play around with it. And all I'm basically doing beyond what I said in the DM is just explaining why I'm emailing her as well. Just for sort of, I think just to be polite, just so it's clear that I'm not trying to bombard her. It's just in case she's not using LinkedIn. So I would say, hey, Kate, thanks in advance for reading this email. I sent you a connection I sent you a DM, but didn't want to risk not covering all my bases if you don't use the platform that much. Reaching out as blah, 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 blah. And I'm literally just repeating what I said over LinkedIn anyway. So you never know. She might be one of those recruiters that ironically doesn't use LinkedIn and she's all on email. So don't miss out on the opportunity, I would say. If you're really keen, try a couple of ways to maybe get hold of her. Let's see how we're doing for time. Yeah, no, we need to keep going. But just one more thing. You can have the slides from today as well. Just wanted to give you another option in case you wanted to go down the line manager or the head of department kind of route. This is a way that you could reach out to Timothy if you were in your shoes for this. There's different ways you can do it. My advice is try to diversify, and somebody at some point will get back. But yeah, so you can take the slides and have a look at how else you could do this. And just quickly as well, very similar to the structure of how you might reach out for a referral. It's a similar process of, number one, be prepared to lead the conversation. Like, you're asking them for the interaction. So it can be as simple as, thank you so much, Timothy, again for your time. As we've been talking about over email, the what is, I would really love to work for Figma, because that's the why, because I've been a fan of the platform for a really long time now. I know a lot about the product and why it would be useful to the average customer. And then the how of the conversation is, and so today I'd love to find out if there is scope on your team for me to be useful. I'd love to understand what are the challenges you're trying to solve right now? What are the problems that you're facing? And maybe my skill set could come in useful here. How does that sound? Obviously, then you're going to be trying to figure out a bit more on this call. So again, you'll have today's slides, but here are some questions that you could pose their way. Things like, what is your team trying to achieve right now? Are there any gaps right now in your team in terms of their knowledge, their skill, or even their attitude that sort of someone like me could take on board? What are some of the traits of the best hires you've made over the last, 2 years of working at Figma? And you can use that information to then be like, right, okay, so based on what I'm hearing, maybe this is how I could be helpful to you. I've done similar before, or I could aim to do this for you. But the key thing with pitching yourself is you've got to understand a little bit more about what would make you an interesting candidate to them, and then pitch accordingly. So there we are, folks. There's a few more things there that you can steal in terms of how to wrap up that conversation and sort of get clarity about, how serious are you about maybe hiring someone like me? So you can go ahead and steal those questions. But for the sake of time, let's move on to the final chapter, which is personal branding. So personal branding, this is where you are building your visibility on a place like LinkedIn, whereby people come to you. They know you for a certain skill set, a certain perspective, even a certain type of content that you're putting out on LinkedIn. And that's the signal to them that you could be valuable in the context of their company. So it's almost like being headhunted, but being headhunted for almost like how you're putting yourself out there. So the nature of the content that you write, or the comments that you write, how you're coming across versus just your skills. So at a finalist or grad level, I promise you this is still possible. And actually, incredible things can happen at a graduate level, because often what happens is we know we're hiring for graduate talent, but the bar is quite low in terms of not many people have a personal brand. So being that person who's willing to even post once a week on LinkedIn, or just comment quite regularly under other people's content, you'll be amazed at how much more visible you become at a graduate level. So it is all to play for, but a few things that you don't need to do to make this happen. You don't need to go viral. It's not about becoming an influencer. It's a very, very different kettle of fish. It's not like being on TikTok or Instagram. It's LinkedIn. So the goal is just make yourself that little bit more visible, 10%, 20%, 30% more visible, and you will reap all the benefits. So how do we do that? It's not as complex as everybody thinks. I'm going to walk you through my step-by-step process. So, number one is you want to actively grow your audience. But the thing that people get wrong is they expect, and it's kind of similar to like almost putting on a show in an auditorium or on stage. People think, well, I need to make the content first, and then the audience will come to me. I'll go viral or I'll have loads of likes, loads of comments, loads of people will see it, and then they'll want to follow me. Doesn't really work like that on LinkedIn so much. It's more the other way round. You send out connection requests to people who you think could be interested in your content. And then by default, they end up seeing your content and then they end up engaging with it. So don't worry about not getting inbound stuff of like going viral, all these likes, all these comments. You build the audience so that you're building up your auditorium and then you put the show on in front of them. But don't worry if the show isn't inviting people to come in of their own steam. So, how can we therefore find people to start adding every single week to our network? Doesn't have to be really overthought here. The main thing is the actual volume of people. So every single week, every single person on LinkedIn has up to 100 connection requests that they can make without needing a LinkedIn premium account, which you don't need. I don't even have it. A lot of people don't have it. So you've got 100 chances every single week to find these kind of buckets of people who at some point would be quite interested in the content that you might put out or just how you're curating yourself with your LinkedIn profile. So let's just imagine for a second, some of you might literally be this person. You might be a business grad looking for marketing roles. You sort of want to, yeah, be known for some of your type of, maybe you do like carousels of the best content in marketing that you've seen that week, and you give your hot takes about why that was a great campaign or why that campaign didn't work very well to sort of show your business and commercial acumen. So it could be people like this. It could be fellow marketers who are just that little bit further ahead than you. It could be fellow students and grads in the same sort of space as you, studying marketing, studying business, what have you. It could be hiring managers for, say, the top 10 companies that, wow, if only I could work at Disney or if I could work at Boohoo or Pretty Little Thing or whatever that is. Be curious about where you'd maybe love to work as a marketer and start finding these hiring managers. And there's many other buckets. This is not an exhaustive list, but think creatively about, okay, if I was to do a carousel about, here's my hot take about, this campaign that went viral last week, who would want to engage? Who might have an opinion? Who might want to share another insight? And that's how you build a community around your content. So there's always going to be an audience, but you've got to be strategic and find these people. And then just one quick thing about writing content. You don't have to write your own content. You can just comment on other people's. This is 3 examples that transparently took me about 60 seconds of my time, and I had over 7,000 people look at my content. Simple comments that just lived in my head. I literally said these comments in my head as I read the person's content I was commenting on. But the trick is to remember what you said and then actually share it and verbalize it and write it down. No doubt when you scroll LinkedIn, you are consciously processing this content. You might as well share your opinion transparently while you're doing so. You can be amazed at how that picks up traction. So just one little piece of advice there. And yeah, I just wanted to show you a couple of graduate and finalist examples to make clear, again, you don't have to be the most senior, most experienced person. It's just sharing within your current knowledge set. What are your hot takes? What's your perspective? What do you think works? What do you want to share about, your passion, which is maybe marketing, business, consulting, could be anything. This is one of my ex-clients, Keris, who has built a fantastic personal brand, not just on LinkedIn, but on TikTok as well. And she's had so much work come her way. It's insane. She is a marketer, so I expect her to do well with this. But just to explain, there's a few buckets of content that works really well on LinkedIn that you could take on board. So for example, you could do entertaining content. Just simple memes that are very relatable based on your niche that you want to sort of tap into. So entertainment is good. Informational content where you're maybe breaking down a campaign or sharing a certain perspective about a company or something like that. And then we also have inspiration content. This is more sort of just on the personal side, your own story of, Keris wrote here, 2024, you've been a whirlwind, like here are some of the things that I've achieved. Some of your like transformations of, I started out uni knowing nothing about content creation. I'm about to graduate in 6 months' time. Here are the top 10 things that I've learned. Like those kind of things are really, really nice to share because it humanizes you, and you're sort of sharing your journey as you go. You don't have to be the expert, but you're just sharing what you know so far. So that's a few ways that you can write some content. I wanted to give you a couple of examples before we jump into Q&A of, okay, imagine it's not marketing. It doesn't have to be creative roles. It can be random. Priyanka, another ex-client of mine, she is specializes in global health and policy around health. She has built an incredible personal brand where she does actually a lot of inspiration content. She shares her networking with professionals. So she's got that accountability of like, I sat down with these people this month. Here are like some things that I learned, or here are my biggest takeaways from those conversations. She also has her own health journey that she is battling. And again, you don't have to share that necessarily if you're not comfortable to, but it can be a really great way to humanize yourself. So she talks about her experiences, an endo sufferer, and she has a ton of traction on those types of posts. So if you're open to it, sharing a little something about, your personal life can be really, really compelling. And another person is the lovely Nidhi, another ex-client of mine, who is in the life sciences field. And again, she hasn't shared a lot of personal stuff. She's gone all in with the sort of information and education content. And some of her stuff has absolutely popped off. She sort of took to doing these infographics, talking about like certain mergers and acquisitions in like the pharma space, talking about like top companies, that sort of thing. And some of them went so viral because it's such shareable content. She had thousands of people sharing her content. But it doesn't have to be viral. It can be small things where maybe you've got only 2 likes, 5 likes, 10 likes. Because again, it's not about how many people are seeing your content, it's about who is seeing your content. And if you continue to curate your audience, the right people will be seeing it. And that's the biggest thing. So I believe that anybody can have a personal brand, anybody can share content, but you can do it in stages. So yeah, think long term with this one. If you think, you know what, it might not happen in 2 minutes, but I'm in my final year at uni, I've got the next year to sort of invest in this, maybe in a daily or weekly fashion, and just see, out of curiosity, where might I arrive by July when I graduate? Who could I connect with? What sort of content could I create? How could I challenge myself to share more insights and therefore make myself significantly more visible? So the sky's the limit, but you've got to be willing to invest in it, sort of, and chip away at it on a daily, weekly basis. So yeah, if that has resonated, I would love to hear in the chat. Would love to hear in the chat as well, maybe of the 3 chapters that we've done a whistle stop tour of today, which ones are going to prove for you probably the biggest opportunities for the type of roles that you're interested in. Any other takeaways that you want to share, please feel free to. But let's have some time for Q&A. Are we good, Karima, to go for like another 5-10-ish minutes?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. We've got a couple of questions already in the chat that we can go through. So we've got Stephen who's asked, I think this was referring to the messages that you were sending through to Figma.
Yes.
So it's, could you use this method for an update on a job application where you haven't heard back from them for 2 to 3 months?
Yeah, really great question. Especially if it's an SME or a startup, I would thoroughly recommend you follow up just on anything that you genuinely want clarity on. I think it's a similar structure. You're right. It could be just words to the effect of, "Hey, so hope you're well. I'm just would love to check in because I'm really passionate about the role that you posted 2 months back. I recognize it might have already gone by now. You might have already hired someone, but I just wanted to put my hat back in the ring for this one. Are there any updates? Is there anything more that you need from me? Happy to hear soon, like chat soon, that sort of thing." You'll be surprised. In my community, we also have recruiters that come and do insight sessions with us. And the last recruiter we had said that, I think she gave like an anecdotal percentage of maybe about 5% of people actually follow up once, and way less than 5% follow up more than once. But when you are in a startup and when you're in an SME, your inbox can be pretty overwhelming, especially in a startup. people don't realize that by reaching back out, you're actually sometimes doing recruiters and hiring managers a favor because you're coming back up to the top of their inbox and they're like, oh yeah, no, I never replied to that person, but I had a good feeling about them. You know what? I'm going to give them the time of day. The one caveat is don't act as though you're entitled to a follow-up from them. It's always from the approach of, hey, you must be really busy, but I am really passionate about this role. Anything you're happy to give in terms of updates or anything that I can do my side to show that I could be really valuable to you here, I'm all ears. It's that sort of vibe rather than saying, hey, I emailed 2 months ago, haven't heard anything. Can I hear, please? Tone and subtlety is everything because what you don't want to do is you can't alienate the very person you need something from. You need to constantly keep them on side and keep them warm and excited about you and curious about you. So it is about the finesse, but hopefully that's given you a few pointers there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Farah. We've got another one from Esteban. This is a relation to the posts, so posting on LinkedIn. Should they be related to things that we've done, topics we've studied, previous work experience, or could it also be things that others did or posted?
Yeah, great question. It can be that or it can not be that. It very much, I would say in the beginning when you're starting LinkedIn, set set the bar so low that you think, no, I could do this once a week and I could almost reiterate this. So maybe in the beginning it is about doing some brainstorming, thinking, okay, I've been at uni for almost 3 years now. What are some of my most exciting projects that are most applicable to the working world or the sector that I want to enter? Because there'll be more than one. So you could start with the first one and be like, I did this project 6 months ago. Here's the biggest thing it taught me about blah, 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 blah. And you can see how that sort of performs. And if that's a good little hook or a good little structure, you think, well, I've got another 3 or 4 projects here that I could sort of reiterate this with. Let's do it. And then it becomes a bit of a series that you can sort of tie things together with. So you can do that, or you could talk nothing about uni, nothing about your experience, and just go with useful information. Maybe it is a breakdown of, company mergers and acquisitions. Maybe it is about marketing campaigns, maybe something else. Maybe it's maybe you're into politics and you're analyzing, the latest budgets, or maybe you're doing things like, if I had to be a PR and comms assistant for the Prime Minister right now for the Labour Party, like this is what I would be doing. You can use current affairs and things that are topical right now, and that's very hookable. What's going on and what's sort of the moment right now is a great hack, but equally you can tap into evergreen content. That's where it's sort of like it's always going to be true about you. Like you've always done that project, you always did that thing at uni, and you can always come back to it. But I think play around with evergreen and of the moment content and see what you prefer.
Brilliant. Thank you, Farah. We've got quite a few coming through, actually, which is fantastic.
Nice.
This next one's not quite a question, it's more of a statement from Han, but I think the biggest issue for me now is to know exactly what I want in terms of my career and then how to then market that.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
suppose not a
I
question,
think,
but
yeah, no, I can add a comment though
yeah,
for sure.
fantastic.
You are not going to be the only person in this room or in general thinking that. So I'm really pleased that you raised that. I think what you can use LinkedIn for is quite selfishly for you, more of a discovery. You don't have to pigeonhole your profile yet into anything. You don't have to claim that you're an aspiring consultant, aspiring marketer. You can keep that brief and just have a sense of, okay, if I had to pick maybe 3 to 5 options, like if I had to whittle it down, what could I be curious about exploring more? And then I would run separate strategies. So you might have a bucket of people where it's like, okay, maybe it's consulting. So I'm going to find 10 to 30 grads who are 1 to 3 years older than me, who are working in and within, like in and beyond like consulting. Then do the same for marketing, do the same for maybe tech sales, like whatever it is that you're curious about and you have a question mark over, prioritize yourself and use it as a way to get clearer. But yeah, like the strategies for like basically it's a bit of a hybrid, I would say, between it's more, I think it falls under referrals, but rather than you're asking for like could I work at this company, it's more like you have a really intriguing career path, like I see that you did the same degree as me and then you ended up here. Would you ever be up for sharing your story? Because I'm just trying to figure out all my options here and you just seem really inspiring. again, like you'll be surprised at how people respond to that. People generally love to talk about themselves and share their stories, especially if they've had a bit of a squiggly journey where it's like, you know what, life wasn't actually that easy for me as a grad. So there's that kind of shared commonality of, you know what, I used to be that person. I was unclear myself and I didn't know what I was going to do with my English literature degree or my theatre degree. That was me, by the way. I did theatre. Very, very random. Could have gone in a million and one different directions. So I think use it for that and just tweak the messaging a little bit to be like, I'm trying to gather insights right now. Maybe it is your role, but maybe it's another one. Like, I'd love to know your honest take here.
That's great advice, Farah. Let's have a look. We've got Hiransh. So apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. Where when reaching out for referrals, what's the best way to move the conversation forward if the other person isn't open to a call but is willing to chat over messages?
Sure.
Um, Building a genuine personal connection can be difficult through text alone.
Yes, I hear you. I think don't see that as a defeat if they turn down the call because the fact that they're even replying saying, "Hey, like thanks for reaching out. I'm quite busy right now. I can't do a call." The fact they bothered to even tell you that is a good sign that you still made an impression with them. So I think you got to be very respectful and it's like no problem at all. Completely understand. You must be very busy right now. Um, would instead a couple of voice notes, or maybe if I send you maybe a couple of questions when you get a chance for 5 minutes just to write down some ideas, would they be better alternatives for you? So I think recommend like give them a couple of options that they could choose between. Like they're two pretty safe bets, to be honest with you. You could even say, no pressure, but if you're not big on LinkedIn, I am on WhatsApp, and you could just send me one like word vomit of a voice note, that sort of thing. Like make it so that the bar is so easy for them because they might be worried as well of like, oh well, I could send them a voice note, but it's probably not going to be very useful for them or it's not going to make sense to them. You can just be like, no, it's fine. Like you can send me the most random way of getting this information to me and I'll do the figuring out. But just anything you can offer, I would really, really appreciate. And probably you'll get something. They won't then turn nothing down. They'll probably then counter and be like, yeah, no, you know what? I can send a voice note over WhatsApp. I can do that next week for you.
Fantastic, thank you. And just the last question from Omid. This I'm actually seeing this quite a lot as well. Why are there so many ghost jobs advertised on the internet where they
Mm.
don't reach out to you, no rejection, or a job ad that's been up for more than 6 months but no one's been hired? Is there anything that we can do about that and about those specific
Yeah.
jobs?
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And it can be heartbreaking because you have so much excitement around this role, and then suddenly you see, oh, it's been reposted a few times, and or like 1,000 people have, although that's a bit of a dud stat, by the way, on LinkedIn, it doesn't actually mean that 1,000 people have applied. And it definitely doesn't mean that all of them, even if they had applied, sorry, were particularly strong candidates. So I'd always try to sort of like cut out that noise. But yes, if you are getting other signals of like, oh, are they going to reply or is this worth my time? A couple of things I would say. You have to shoot your shot. If you are excited, you can't go down the route of being like, oh, well, but what if they never reply? Or what, it's been up for 6 months, like therefore it's not worth my time. You have to try. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing I would say about like the ghosting, in your message, try and just repeating the message one more time because I feel like there's
Yeah.
two different types of ghosting. There's either like you apply and you just never hear back, or the actual role itself never existed. Are they the two I'm
I think it's more that the role just hasn't existed. Yeah, yeah, it's just a ghost job online advertised.
yeah, it's so tough. There's not a ton you can do about it, but it's all good data because worst case scenario, let's say, I don't know, it was Figma and it was like a graduate SDR role, like sales development, and it just turned out to be completely false and just never existed. Be curious with yourself. Okay, so what was it about that role that did pique my interest? Is it the fact that it's a tech startup? Is it the fact that it was like a really graduate friendly sales role? What was it that made me think I'm excited about this and I'm therefore disappointed that it was a ghost role? And how can I use that information to double down? So let's use the keywords of graduate SDR or graduate sales program, or find competitors of Figma. You know, if they're not going to hire you, their competitors might, or just like another product in the market that feels quite similar, or sort of like, yeah, familiar to what you liked about Figma. So I think it's so tough. It's easier said than done, but try to park the emotion and look at the logic of, okay, so how can I steal what might have worked here and just find a role that wasn't a ghost role? Because they're not all ghost roles, I promise you.
Just to add to that, about my own experience, this happened years and years ago as well, that maybe you can take on board. That I'd applied for this job. I think it was during COVID times, and I couldn't get the application going. It just wasn't taking my CV. So I actually emailed them directly, said I can't apply, but I'd like to put my CV forward. And they actually said that the role had been filled a year ago. So it was just sitting online. So it's always worth, and I think I just followed up with just saying, well, at least if you can keep my CV, and if this job comes up along later on, then let me know. But yeah, it's difficult to kind of navigate through those ghost jobs really and see what to
Mhm.
do from there. But
I love that advice, because just because it was a no then doesn't mean it's a no forever. And again, just being that person who's willing to demonstrate and prove they're passionate enough to be like, hey, I've really wanted to apply, but I think this doesn't exist anymore. Or like, I just kept getting like an error message, but like, I want you to be able to see my application. You know, is this a better route for me? That does not go unnoticed. You know, I used to be a hiring manager, like I said earlier, and the amount, well, I can tell you, like on one hand, I hired hundreds of people and interviewed and rejected thousands more. On this hand, I can tell you the amount of people who directly reached out to me via LinkedIn, via email, just to be like, hey, I realize you're going to be my interviewer, or hey, I see you work at this company. Like, you know, I'm having X problem, or I really want to work here. Like, any advice? So, like, we will remember this. We do notice it. Am I saying that every single time it's going to be perfect and you're going to get a reply and it's going to be like a Cinderella story? No, but be the person that's willing to do it, because you will always win by being someone who has that mentality.
brilliant. Thank you so much, Farah. I think we're out of time for now. However, I'm sure if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to you,
Yeah.
Farah, on LinkedIn, or anything like that. So, yeah, what I'll do is I'll send everyone a copy of the slides, a copy of the recording as well. It'll be on our website. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for everyone for your input, your questions, and thank you, Farah, for your presentation today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for being here and offering any engagement, whether it's questions, feedback, challenge. This is how you're going to learn. And the fact that you've come live, or if you've got to the very end of this recording, it shows that you're serious about your career, and you're going to go the distance. So just well done for being here. Thank you for investing the time that this deserves. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see and hear what transpires.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'll send over Farah's LinkedIn as well, for anyone that needs to reach out to. So just wait for the email to come through. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye everyone. Take care.